Nice prayer. Yeah, absolutely. It's a thing. Why? It's actually a type of fraud. But it makes people pay attention. I guess I'm on.
All right, as you were, take your seats. We're ready to begin. See, I'm not a nice guy like Russ who just gets up here and starts singing a song.
You could do Night with Eben
I'll
Pinion.
actually tell you to sit down.
Night with Eben Pinion. You want to sing that one?
We don't want to put everybody to sleep.
Oh, there you go. So I have to say, wonderful sermon from Lyle today. Really just spot on. And that question that was asked in Philadelphia how many years ago, you could ask it today. It's going to get the same answer. So it was really very interesting. So for those of you that don't, I know we might have some guests, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Tom Riggins. I'm the deacon for missionaries and ministries here at the church, and this is Stacy Walker. We're also part of the security team here, and in my real life, I work in global fraud security and intelligence, so I sort of know a couple things about this. It came to our attention that there's a lot more fraud and scams and things going on in the world, and a lot of it is targeting senior citizens. A lot of it is targeting people who are trustworthy, which are Christians. And so we're going to talk today about a couple things. You'll notice up on the screen, it's scams, identity theft, generative AI, which is the big word a lot of people like to talk about. And my wife just yelled at me because I put pig butchering up there. But pig butchering is actually what a type of fraud is called. And we're going to talk about that as well. Scott and some other folks are handing out some things, so you don't have to write down any notes or anything. There's lots of information we're going to pass around. But one of the things that I wanted to start with was the fact that the Bible actually talks about fraud. It actually talks about lying and talks about being honest and other people being taken advantage of. So we have a couple of scriptures here, Proverbs 21:5, 5 and 6. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. The getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor and a snare of death. And also in 1 Timothy 6, 9 and 10, but those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all evil. Notice it doesn't say money is the root of all evil. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. And it is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. Now, you might say, well, Tom, that doesn't really talk about fraud. That talks about being greedy. That talks about getting things, ill-gotten gains. But it reminds me that the old sayings are true, right? And so we have some people here that might remember these old sayings, like Stacy. He's a couple months older than I am. There's no free lunch, right? We know that one, right? There's no free lunch. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. And one of my favorites from one of my favorite presidents, which is trust but verify, Ronald Reagan, right? So all of those things wrap up into this. And the reason that we talk about wanting to get rich quick schemes or things like that, that's how a lot of people fall into scams, is because they hear, oh, you've won the lottery in Ireland, you just need to pay us this little fee to get your money, and it's, by the way, you have to send us a gift card because we don't take checks. So it's that desire for that get-rich-quick scheme or that windfall of money that comes along that is what we're talking about here. Okay. So you guys can read this while I'm talking. So there's all different kinds of fraud schemes: identity theft, phishing, something called farming. We make up all these good words like pig butchering. That's what you're seeing up here is a pig butchering scheme. And we'll talk about that in a second. But a lot of it happens because we are now connected, right? Everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket or in their purse. You're on the computer. You use Facebook or you use social media in some situations. We are all available out there. You know, it's kind of funny to me that people are so worried about their information being out on the World Wide Web. Guess what? Your information's out on the World Wide Web. Last year, there was a third-party contractor that had access to all of our Social Security numbers, and they were breached. So your Social Security number is out in the world. Don't think it's not. It's out there. And so what we give to people and what we say to people, you have to be very careful because they can connect those dots. So they use things like your Social Security number and then your date of birth, and then they can use that to apply for credit cards. Or you might get a call that says, hey, you know, you need to re-log into your bank account because there's an error. And so you click on a link that looks legitimate, and you put your password in, and guess what? Now your bank account's been compromised. So there's lots of things that can happen in those type of schemes. The website and the email can be fake, and they're getting better at that, by the way. Generative AI, which we had in the topic there, we'll talk about that in a minute, but generative AI actually makes it easier. In my business, we talk about what does generative AI do, and what it does is it lowers the bar of entry. It means that you don't have to know anything about anything to create fraud because generative AI will teach you how to do it. And so it's kind of scary that's out there. Some of the schemes that you might have heard about: debt collection. You'll get a phone call from the IRS, right? Oh, you owe money, but if you can pay now with a Western Union MoneyGram or a Walmart gift card to the IRS, we won't come arrest you, okay? First of all, I can tell you, the IRS doesn't make phone calls. The IRS sends letters, right, David? David Wakeland gets them all the time because of his tax cheating schemes. No, he's honest. But IRS sends letters. You will never get a phone call from the IRS. You might call them, but they're never going to call you. A lot of times they'll say there's a fake government official that is, you know, oh, we have an arrest warrant for you for unpaid parking tickets or whatever it might be, but we won't come get you if you send us, you know, this credit card number or these gift cards or things like that. So anytime you get something like that, you need to pause and say, could this be real? Should this be real? Is this real? And 99.999, 100% of the time, it's not going to be real. That is not how your bank contacts you. That is not how credit card companies contact you. And nowadays, you'll see notes from your bank saying, we will never ask for your password, we will never ask for your account number, things like that. And so you have to pay attention to those things. Scam text messages, and this is what we're going to talk about. It looks like a text alert from your bank we just talked about, but also you might get, and I know I get these all the time, how many people, we can raise a hand, have gotten a text that just says hello? I have. I think I got one yesterday. And I use multiple types of messaging things. So I use WhatsApp. Travel internationally, you tend to use WhatsApp. There's one called Signal, which is actually a lot more secure, but not completely secure. Facebook Messenger, the regular text messages on your phone. It doesn't matter. I get those hellos. So this is the example that I want to talk about here, and we'll go through this, and I'm going to ask a question. So the first text is from a scammer: long time no see, how are you recently? Or just hello, could also be that. The person then says, oh, are you not Kevin? Sorry, I guess I added the wrong person, sorry. And then the person that received the text, the target, says, no, not Kevin. Scammer continues the conversation. Sorry, I made the wrong call. Since I have many business partners, my assistant saved the wrong number. Please forgive me. The target, no problem. What country are you calling from? Oh, I come from Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a metropolis with technology, finance, and food. Have you ever been here? Oh, acquaintance is fate. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from New York originally, New York City. Oh, place here is a very beautiful place. I went through it 3 years ago. Okay. So who can tell me where the target of this scam made a mistake, made their first mistake? Right there. We get these all the time. Sometimes you get a legit, oh, sorry, I texted the wrong number, right? My phone number is from the state of Maine, so I get a lot of texts that come from other numbers in Maine. My phone number is actually very close to an eye doctor's office in Maine, so I get a lot of phone calls that are legitimate wrong number calls and wrong texts. But the key is they engaged. They continued the conversation. And that's the hook, right? As soon as that scammer is like, oh, he's talking to me, boom. For our fishermen out there, you start reeling them in because now you've got a hook. And the person is like, yeah, I'm going to have this conversation. This is an actual text message, started out this way. This person ended up losing $48,000 because this is pig butchering. And they call it pig butchering because what do you do with a pig? Any pig farmers besides me out there? You fatten pigs up, right? You get them, you feed them grain, they tend to like you, they know you're coming with the grain, you feed them more grain, they gain weight, they go big. You know, the pig is the miracle animal that turns lettuce into bacon, right? So that's pig butchering. So in this scheme, I become your friend or potentially a love interest. That happens a lot too. People feel like, oh, they're lonely single people, older single people, someone to talk to. They do it through text. It's all made up. It's all fake. And they create this relationship where they're drawing you in. They're fattening you up for the butchering, which is the end result when you raise pigs. And what they do is they take a little money and they say, oh, if you can send me $100, I have a great crypto investment. But because you trust this person, you've started this conversation, you do that. And then they might send you $200 back to hook you. Like, oh, this worked. This is a great money-making scheme. Remember we talked about if it's too good to be true, it is. And it can be large numbers. I'm using $100, $200, but we've seen it where a person who is being scammed will send $10,000 or $20,000, and the scammer will send back $40,000, real money, to hook them, to make them trust you. And then the next thing you know, it's $50,000 and $100,000 and it's gone. And so it's a game that is played very, very well by the people that are out there. You have to remember that people who commit fraud, this is their job. This is what their chosen profession is. And they practice 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We go to work. If we're not retired, we go to work. We work 8-hour, 12-hour shift. We go home. We don't want to think about work. They think about it 24/7. There's courses you can take on the dark web on how to commit fraud. So this is an industry that's out there. It's organized crime. It's lots of stuff like that. Again, we talked about the fake prizes, winning a prize. But you have to give a little bit of money to get the shipping and handling for your millions of dollars. There's no lottery in this country or around the world that actually will ask you to pay them something to send you the money that you've won, right? So the Florida State Lottery is not going to say, well, Tom, you're a winner, but you got to come pay $50 to get your winnings. It doesn't happen. So you got to think about those things. Facebook scams. We have all seen this. Those of us that are on Facebook. Hey, don't accept my new friend request because I've been hacked, right? That's because people click links. We think Facebook is all fun and games, and for the most part it is. But if you click a link that somebody sent you, you can basically immediately give control of your email box, your computer, other things directly through that link. So clicking hyperlinks, those little blue underline things that you get in messages, don't do that. And sometimes, and this happened to me 2 weeks ago, my trainer, we work out with a trainer, he had sent me a text on WhatsApp. Well, he's never used WhatsApp, and I've never communicated with him on WhatsApp. And so I'm like, this is odd, so I'm not going to click the link that he sent me. And I have his phone number, so I actually texted him directly and said, hey, was this you? And he's like, oh, yeah, that was me. I saw that you were on WhatsApp, and I sent you this thing. Okay, fine, but I checked it. I made sure it was legitimate. I didn't just click on something. Had I clicked on a malicious link there, I could have, had my whole address book, all my emails, all those things compromised. So it's very, very important. One that a lot of people do get caught with, and Stacy and I were talking about this, and Stacy is going to talk here in a minute. The other day is law enforcement, arrest warrant type stuff. And it actually was in the newspaper or on Facebook maybe, that there's a new scam going on where because Collier County will publish people who've been arrested, right? We see the mugshot and they tell you this person was arrested for whatever the crime was, and they're in the county jail. What's happening is families are getting calls from people saying, hey, we're with the bail bondsman. We noticed that your loved one is in jail. Send us a credit card number and we'll bail them out. Well, what they don't tell you is that the county jail doesn't take credit cards. It's cash only. And so it's a scam. But it's a scam because imagine you're the family member of this person who's been arrested. You want to get them out of jail. You're like, okay, this sounds great. I'll do that. You give them your credit card number, you've lost a bunch of money. So these scams happen a lot, and it sounds legit. It sounds like this is what's really happening. And so these scammers use your generosity, your trustingness, your inability to research where they're coming from. The technology is out there today where I can make my phone number be the phone number for the police department. That's what will come up on your phone. It'll say Naples Police Department, or it'll say, Collier County Sheriff's Office. That's all easily done. It's very easily done. So there's really no way to check. One of the things that we suggest, though, is you call them back. Okay, what's your number? I'll call you back. Or I'll call you back at the sheriff's office. And then you look up the number for the sheriff's office and call it back, and you'll find that it's not the right person that's there. Again, they want Western Union MoneyGrams, gift cards, wire transfers is a big one, but usually the banks are now savvy to that. And I don't know if you've done a wire transfer recently, but you basically have to prove who you are to the bank several times to make sure, which is great. Sometimes it's a little bit of a hassle, but they want to prove that who you are. So we'll talk real briefly about generative AI, and then we'll talk about sort of what you should do to prevent and what you should do if this happens to you. What are the first steps that you should take? And if you have questions, just raise your hand while I'm talking, because someone has a microphone around here. I think Scott's around here somewhere. He'll run to you. But generative AI, and who here has not heard of generative AI? Raise your hand. If you've not heard of generative AI, or Gen AI that's being called. Okay, good. A couple people have not heard of it. But basically, artificial intelligence, one little portion of that is called generative AI. We've heard of ChatGPT, where I can ask a question in normal language to ChatGPT, and it'll spit out an answer. It's actually a very useful and revolutionary tool, but one of the things I'm always fond of saying is that anything that makes our life easier makes the bad guy's life just as easy. And generative AI is one of those. So there's a newish scam that's going on out there where generative AI can actually make voice impersonations. And if you're like me, I do a lot of public speaking. We're here in church. It goes out on the Facebook feed. It goes out on the YouTube feed. That's my voice that's being broadcast right now. So somebody can record that. And there are tools that are generative AI tools that can actually mimic my voice and go forward. And so you might have heard about these scams. It's scary, I know. Everybody's like, the eyes are getting bigger. It's very scary. I gave this talk, a similar talk, to the FBI in New York City in November, and their eyes got big. And that's the FBI. So, it's all relatively new. But an example is, imagine receiving a call that sounds like your son or your grandson saying, hey mom, hey grandma, I'm in trouble. Can you wire me $2,000? I'll explain later, but I'm really panicked and I got to deal with this. Click. Well, I don't know what I'd do. That would scare the heck out of me. And so those are the type of things that can happen. And it is scary how accurate these voice impersonations are. And so again, they're usually going to ask for a gift card. That's always the giveaway. It's a gift card. We need a gift card to do this. And so, be aware of those things. And the one thing that I teach everybody about this, for that specific thing, is develop a code word for your family. We have one in our family. We're the only people that know it. Myself, my wife, my two kids. So if I got that call, my first reaction probably would be, why are you waking me up at 2 in the morning? But what's the code word? And if they can't give you the code word, you hang up. It doesn't matter how much they sound like your loved one. If they don't know that code word, you hang up. And that's a really simple way to avoid that kind of potential risk. You can also, text the person back on the number that you know that they have, communicate with them, and that happens as well. So, stay skeptical, be cautious about sharing recordings, voice notes. A lot of people talk to text or they'll send a voice note. I got one yesterday from a guy, and I'm like, and he works in my business. I'm like, I can't believe you did that. He sent me a voice recording instead of a talk to text, and do those things. Generative AI, what it has done is it has lowered that bar of entry. It makes things very easy. I do a lot of work in healthcare fraud, and so it used to be you had to know at least a little bit about medicine to create a fake claim form. You had to know what a claim form looked like. You had to know what a diagnosis code was. You had to know what a procedure code was. You had to know that a doctor's note includes certain things. Guess what? Now you don't. Now you can ask ChatGPT, and we do this to test it, create for me a medical claim for such and such and medical notes to justify it. It does it. You might tweak it a little bit, and then you say, okay, create 500 of those. A little bit different. In 30 seconds, you have 500 medical claims ready to go. So it lowers that bar of entry. Any questions so far about anything? You're all asleep. Or you want to know more about pig butchering? We can talk about that too. Okay. So Stacy and I are both going to talk about now, what if you are, Scott has a question.
Sorry, I'm late.
No.
I'm from a different state. I'm from a different state, and in that state, you did not have to put your Social Security number when you were filling in your profile at a doctor's office. Is that true?
That's
I
true
don't like
everywhere.
To put that
That
number
is true everywhere. No medical appointment you can tell them no.
Okay.
Absolutely. You do not have to list your Social Security number. There's very few things that you do. Taxes, obviously, that's how they collect the information. Some federal forms, you do have to put your Social Security number. But your doctor's, I've had, was at the car repair, had to get a car repaired because I was hit by somebody. The State Farm, which was the other person's insurance, wanted to know my date of birth. I said, no, thank you. Your person hit me. Why do you need my date of birth? So you have to be cautious about what's going on. Scott Frank has a question back there. But yeah, you can always refuse, Scott. You can always refuse to give people your Social Security number. Here's an interesting fact, and many people in this room probably know this, but it's actually illegal to use your Social Security number as a form of identification. The law creating it actually forbade the federal government to use that number as a form of identification. Of course, that's completely ignored, like most other rules that are out there, but that when it was originally created. Yes, Frank?
Several months ago, I had a charge on my Visa, and it was an Amazon charge, and it wasn't for much. It was like $15, $20, and I didn't remember ever doing that, so I looked at my Amazon account, and doesn't show I purchased anything from that amount. And I tried to get through Amazon to find out who the charge was from or what it was, and I couldn't get through, so I looked it up on Googled it, and it was the company that Amazon dispute the charges, so I called and I asked about the charge, and they made believe that they said it, but they were mumbling to me about what the charge was for, and I kept having to repeat it, and they almost had me roped in, and they finally, after 10 minutes of me asking, and you get all the background noise, and so anyway, long story short, I kept talking. He finally told me what it was for, a mirror, which And he said, you can get it off by going to this site and downloading this app. Now,
Yeah.
this app
I hope you didn't do
was
that.
an app that you can find out what the charge is from a remote location. And so now he's already reeling me in because now he can get to my bank records. Now, go ahead and download your bank records.
Yeah.
So he could access it.
That's a great lead-in, Frank, thank you, to what we're going to talk about, which is, that is part of a scam. Like, you might see a charge on your credit card for like 5 cents. What happens is someone is testing to see that you actually have the credit card works, right? And so the question comes up, Stacy, well, what do you do if you see those charges? My suggestion would be never call the vendor, call your credit card company first. And then you might have to deal with some things after that. But what would happen, what should people do when they feel like they are a victim of some of these scams? What's the first steps that should go into it?
Well, when it comes to computer-related fraud or computer-related anything, this is really Tom's ball game. I'm a computer primitive. I am literally the last member of the Naples Police Department that writes tickets with a pen and paper. And IT has given up trying to educate me. They're just waiting for me to retire. So the reason it occurred to us to do this presentation is this is becoming increasingly common. It was starting to, the ball started rolling back when I was still working the street. Now it's become so widespread, I think I get some type of a phishing email or text almost every day. My family has been targeted by these people. I've been targeted by these people. I got the IRS scam a while back where they called up and said, a warrant's been issued for your arrest and you owe money, and if you will send the money to this, wire the money to us, then the warrant can be withdrawn. And I was like, really? Wow. Well, I'm sorry, I'm broke right now, so I'm just gonna have to wait for you to come get me. I'll stay right here and wait for you. I won't try to get away. To my disappointment, no one showed up. I was really disappointed. So if you believe that you have been victimized by some type of a scammer, and this happened to a family member of mine recently, notify your bank right away. If you have been in contact with someone who is very convincing and very friendly and very helpful, and they have persuaded you to hand over some of your personal information, and then you hang up and think, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or that didn't sound quite right, contact your bank right away and let them know what happened so that they can take action to prevent having your bank account cleaned out. Contact your credit card company. Let them know that you believe you may have been the victim of fraud so they can begin an investigation about that. And then you will probably need to notify. Hi, Scott. I see you waving back there. What you got?
Oh, I was waiting for you to finish. I got
okay.
Yeah, I got caught in the DOT scammer, saying that I had a ticket and all I had to do was pay it with my debit card. And I had just worked 12 hours. I just worked 1 day a week, and I was tired. And I do have a DOT ticket. I thought I paid it, and I had. But at any rate, I sent in my debit card, and it looked like a legitimate form. And then when I clicked send, it rejected it. So I knew right then this is ridiculous, and I called my bank, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I had to wait over an hour and a half to get someone from the bank, and they took care of it.
You need a different bank.
Yeah. So then I had to spend the whole rest of the week changing my auto pays to my new debit card. But they said that what happened is they download that debit information and they use, what is it called, card something, but they can auto pay with their telephone once they have my debit card information on their phone.
Apple Pay, Google
Yeah,
Pay, all of
yeah.
those that make our life so easy.
Right.
Yeah,
They make it easy for a scammer too.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
AT&T's running the worst. I teach my employees not ever to say the word yes. About 5, 6 years ago, AT&T called and they said something, and my employee said yes. For the next 7 months, I got paid charged $75 on my account because somebody said yes. And then AT&T, they don't give you your money back right then. They make you, over a period of time, give it back. So there's unscrupulous big corporations too. And in fact, my daughter used to work for WorldCom, and they call them scammers. No, not scammers, they're crammers. Between AT&T and Verizon, they claim one thing, but they're trying to get their business away from AT&T. So, they're not squeaky clean.
No. There's a question back there, too.
What about the toll zone areas? I've got email that I owe on toll zone, and I'm afraid to click it on to see what it's about. I think it's probably a scam.
Did you say a toll?
Yeah, it says that I owe a toll, and I know a couple of
You'll
times
get a letter. You'll get a letter in the mail.
You get a letter in
You'll
the
get a
mail.
letter. You're not going to get an email.
Yeah.
It's the same with the IRS. The IRS is not going to call you. They're going to send you a letter. They're going to send you multiple letters before things get serious.
And that's another example, the toll booth thing, like, Easy Pass or SunPass or whatever you have. Like, now they don't employ people to stand in the toll booths anymore, right? It's making our life easier. You just drive through it 45 miles an hour. And it says, hey, we'll bill you by your license plate, which is true, and they do that. But like Stacy said, they're not going to email you or send you a text. You're going to get a letter with a bill that's legit that you have to pay for that. So that's we have to be more skeptical. Unfortunately, as Christians and as people who want to think good of the world, we can be gullible. We can be taken advantage of because we give that benefit of the doubt to the people that we're dealing with. Frank?
Yeah, this one I get quite often. It's, they'll call and they'll say, can I speak to Bob? I said, well, there's no Bob here. Well, I'll speak to you. I said, well, this is John, and I already know what's going on. I said, I work for the sheriff's department, and that ends that conversation.
And they hang it up, yeah.
Another big scam is the medical bill. Anybody in here over age 50 that doesn't have medical bills? Except me. You get a call from someone and saying you owe a medical bill, and it frightens people. They think, gosh, I thought I paid that. But then they're asking for payment for a medical bill that may have either already been paid or it's fraudulent altogether. Spoke with a friend of mine last night who's also a police officer in Tennessee, and his family had been targeted by that just this week. Called up his aunt, said, you owe a medical bill for this doctor visit. She had been to the doctor. But she called Tom and said, I think I paid that. And he said, of course you paid it. They're not going to call you up and say you owe this medical bill. They'll send you a letter. They'll send you a bill. But it frightens people. It's designed to frighten you and put you into a panic so that if you're panicked, you're not thinking clearly. You got to pause, come down for a moment, and think about this for a minute. Does this sound like it's really legitimate? Does it sound like this is something that I actually participated in or that I paid or so forth?
So when should somebody call the police?
After you have contacted your bank and your credit card company. Do that first. Then contact the police department. And that may or may not be necessary, but it doesn't hurt. So if you go ahead and contact the police department or the sheriff's department, and you need to know, by the way, which jurisdiction you're in. Most people that live in this area think they live in Naples. Naples is a very small geographic area. So unless your zip code's 34102 or 34103, you don't live in the city of Naples. So you'd need to call the Collier County Sheriff's Department.
And in the handout that was passed around, I put phone numbers in there for the non-emergency numbers. And actually, the Collier County Sheriff's Office actually has a fraud tip line. And so that number is in there as well. Naples doesn't, but there's only, what,
We don't have a fraud tip line, but we do have I knew that was going to happen. We don't have a fraud tip line, but we do have a detective assigned to financial crimes.
Gene.
Specifically for them.
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about the tape line that you just mentioned.
Couldn't
And
hear
some
you,
of these things, I think, in my opinion, are common sense, because I took a report for some lady in town who, she lost about $750,000, and she won a lottery. They claimed she won a lottery for like 22 million. All she had to do is pay 750,000. And I asked her, did you even play? No, you didn't play. So how could you win something you didn't even play? So, but I think she had money enough, and she sent $750,000 away. And to me, it was common sense. How could you lose something on the lottery that you never played? So you got to be vigilant and use your senses in regards to those things.
Yeah, no, that's, and people hear those dollar amounts and they think that's like, well, I can't write a check for $750,000, so not a problem. But let me tell you, worldwide, these are billion and billion dollar fraud schemes. They're making a lot of money. And there are very rich people in this world around the globe who can write billion-dollar checks or million-dollar checks, and they do it. And they get scammed by these things. The other thing, real quick, because I know we're running out of time, and Scott's itching to push that button on Stacy.
I thought Lyle would push it as a form of revenge.
But you can also freeze your credit. And so that's what I would suggest. If you've never done this before, all 3 credit reporting agencies allow you to go in and put a freeze for free on your credit. And what that means is that nobody else can take out credit for you, right? You got to know, like, hey, I'm buying a house tomorrow, don't do that. But if you put these freezes on your credit, then they can't actually take out more credit in your name. And it's something very simple to do. You can do it online, and it's a great suggestion of that.
I keep a freeze on my credit all the time. If I need to take it off, it's a 10-minute job, and then you can put it right back on.
Yeah.
And it prevents somebody from opening an account or taking out a loan in your name.
I know there's a couple more questions. You can certainly ask us afterward. They're going to ring the bell on us, but I want to go over just a couple more things. This is actually on Facebook. This is a scam that's going on. If you do buy gift cards, there's organized crime coming out of some European countries and so forth, where they actually put fake barcode stickers on the gift cards, and when you pay for it and it gets activated, the money actually immediately goes to them. So be very careful if you're going to buy gift cards to give to grandkids or stuff on their birthdays and things like that. I would suggest it, like I do this all the time. I have nieces and nephews. I don't buy physical gift cards. I'll go on Amazon, and you can actually buy the gift card from the store that you want on Amazon, and they'll send it to them. So there's no way to have this happen. But this is happening in Naples, and these guys were arrested. You can tell by their little fancy orange jumpsuits. And so we'll finish up just by saying, there is scriptural reference around this. Always be doubting, trust but verify. We want to be giving people. We want to be, humble. We don't want to think the worst of people. But in the world today, there's a lot of people that are out to get you. So Jeremiah 17:5, thus saith the Lord, cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength, whose heart turns away from the Lord. In 1 Peter 5:8-9, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking to devour. Resist him firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood and throughout the world. Be sober-minded, be watchful, double-check things. Nobody's ever going to ask you to pay an electric bill with a gift card. Doesn't happen. Don't fall victim to those things. Freeze your credit. Code word with your family to avoid those voice scams. And really, if you get yourself in trouble, call your bank first, call your credit company first. They can freeze everything immediately. These guys are very fast. If they get your credit card, it will be within seconds the charges will start hitting that. There's organized crime around the world that does this, and so they have phone banks set up where they hit. The pictures are just incredible out there, what's going on. So with that,
Don't panic. Take a breath.
yeah.
Think about
Last time I got
think
a
about it.
text, I wrote back that I turned their number into the FBI, and they needed to repent and know God, and I would pray for them.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Let's close with a quick prayer, and we thank you. And like I said, Stacy and I can answer questions. But Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for these Christians that are gathered here to understand that all of our instructions for life, whether the world is 2,000 years ago or the world is today, where the devil is seeking to do harm to your people, there's just new ways to do it. And we need to be ever mindful, ever watchful, sober-minded about how we conduct ourselves in this world. Be with us as we leave this place, Lord. Grant us safety and good judgment as we travel, and protect us from those that seek to do us harm. And let us be that light that they see that has them turn away from their evil ways and turns to the only truth in the life, and that is you. We pray all these things in Jesus' name.